Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Preet Bharara, and I'm the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Today we announce what is believed to be the largest gang takedown in New York City history. We have charged 120 defendants in two rival Bronx street gangs with racketeering, narcotics, and firearms offenses. In addition, the charges include allegations of multiple murders, attempted murders, shootings, stabbings, and beatings committed in furtherance of federal racketeering conspiracies. Yesterday evening and early this morning, nearly 700 NYPD officers and federal agents swept through the city to make arrests and to conduct court-authorized searches. So why did we bring these charges and take these actions today? The answer is very simple: to make the city safer for its citizens, particularly those who live in and around public housing projects, who have suffered far too long with drugs and violence as an unavoidable part of their everyday lives. We bring these charges so that all New Yorkers, including those in public housing, can live their lives as they deserve, free of drugs, free of guns, and free of gang violence. How did this investigation start? Well, it began in December 2014, at a time when violence was surging in the areas around the Eastchester Gardens housing projects in the Bronx. It started with dedicated police officers and federal agents working with committed gang prosecutors in our office, asking themselves two basic questions: what accounts for all this violence, and what can we do about it? It turns out that much of the violence was caused by two street gangs, one called the Two Fly YGs, and the Big Money Bosses. These gangs have been at war with each other and other gangs in the Bronx for nearly a decade, as we allege. These gangs, by the way, didn't distinguish between rival gang members and law-abiding residents of the community. If you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, you could be shot, stabbed, even killed. They didn't also distinguish between young and old. As alleged in the indictment, murder victims of these gangs ranged from a 15-year-old child, allegedly stabbed to death, to a 92-year-old woman killed in her own home by a stray bullet. The Two Fly Gang, a subset of the citywide Young Gunners, or YG gang, is based in the NYCHA housing complex of Eastchester Gardens, as we described. Now, over 2,000 people live at Eastchester Gardens. The vast majority are hardworking families trying to raise their families, earn a living, and to go to school in peace. But for years, as we allege, Two Fly terrorized residents of Eastchester Gardens, maintaining a stranglehold on the housing complex and its surrounding areas. They even took over a playground in the middle of Eastchester Gardens, and instead of children playing in safety, members of Two Fly allegedly stored guns and sold drugs in that playground. Both of the indictments include charges of narcotics distribution near public schools and playgrounds. Today's charges and arrests essentially dismantle the Two Fly gang from top to bottom. Now, BMB, the rival gang, is a subset of the citywide Young Bosses, or YB's, gang. Its members also call themselves the Money-Making Mafia, Triple M, or BLAMA. BMB operates, as alleged, a few blocks away on White Plains Road from 215th Street to 233rd Street. This area is a long stretch of road hedged on both sides by single-family homes and stores, with a number of, again, playgrounds and schools. Like Two Fly, we allege that BMB stored guns in abandoned homes and other places in public for easy access. And like Two Fly, BMB has allegedly been responsible for dozens of shootings, stabbings, beatings, and robberies, including several murders and attempted murders. And as with the other gang I mentioned, today's charges and arrests dismantle BMB as well from top to bottom. If you can see the chart to my left shows you a little bit of the geographical location. The area in red is the area that we allege were the territories ruled over by the Big Money Bosses, and in purple, the area ruled over by the Two Fly gang. And you'll see that sometimes the Big Money Bosses operate in this area as well, not so far from each other, noting also where some of the public housing complexes are. As the indictments allege, Two Fly and BNB were not only at war with each other, but with other gangs operating out of nearby NYCHA housing developments as well. Violent organizations like the so-called Slut Gang, based in the Boston Secor housing development, and the YSGs based in the Edenwald. As we have seen with many criminal enterprises recently, Two Fly and BNB actively used social media to promote, protect, and grow their ranks, including by posting videos on YouTube bragging about their criminal endeavors. During the course of this investigation, we obtained warrants for over 100 Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts connected to the defendants' alleged criminal activity. Now that's the criminal case. Let me pause for a moment to say a couple of things about the victims of these crimes. I'm not just talking about the direct victims who were robbed, beaten, stabbed, shot, or even killed, but also the residents of the communities who have had to suffer through the gang violence and the drug dealing, the gunshots in the middle of the night, the open-air drug markets and playgrounds and schoolyards, and the constant dread that their children or other loved ones might become the victim of a stray bullet. These are people whose struggles, too often, go unrecognized. If you live in public housing, you also have the right to live in a clean and safe environment. There are over 400,000 NYCHA residents who, according to housing and urban development regulations, are entitled to housing that is, I quote, and this is from the regulations, decent, safe, sanitary, and in good repair. And it's clear that many are not getting that. And that's why separately, in thinking about our overall public safety mission of the office, our civil division is looking separately at whether NYCHA is actually providing housing that satisfies these HUD-mandated conditions. Housing that is, quote, decent, safe, sanitary, and in good repair, close quote. Because at the end of the day, all of these worries are interwoven. And I know the police commissioner agrees with that. Whether NYCHA buildings have proper lighting, working elevators, trash-free hallways, and lead and mold-free apartments. In other words, whether the housing is in decent, safe, sanitary, and in good repair, that affects whether gangs and drugs can take hold of areas and of neighborhoods. It affects whether the rule of law reigns or the chaos of a gang takes root. Now, while today's actions cannot solve all the problems at the Eastchester Gardens, they go a long way, we think, in eradicating the source of so much mayhem in that neighborhood. Now, the charges and arrests today, as you can see by how many folks are standing up here beside me at this podium, given that it's the largest of its kind, we believe, that's the product of a lot of collaboration and cooperation, so there are a lot of partners to acknowledge, so please bear with me. First, I want to thank the NYPD, represented here by its great commissioner, Commissioner Bratton. I also want to thank some folks in particular, the Chief of Detectives, Robert Boyce, Deputy Chief Jason Wilcox, Commanding Officer of Detective Bureau of the Bronx, Inspector Christopher McCormick, Captain Louis DeSegli, Lieutenant Michael Costello, Sergeant John King of the Bronx Gang Squad, and NYPD detectives Paul Jesselson and Paul O'Connor, who did amazing and crucial work to bring us to this point. Also critical to the investigation was Homeland Security Investigations, represented here today by Angel Melendez, a special agent in charge of the New York Field Office. From HSI, I also want to specifically recognize Special Agents Todd Kowalski and Paul Pasuko. I want to thank another partner in so many of our drug cases, obviously the DEA, represented by James Hunt, Special Agent in charge of the New York office. I also want to thank Will Plummer, Associate Special Agent in charge, and DEA Specialists Moises Walters and Bruce Hom. From the ATF, that also participated and helped get us here, represented by Assistant Special Agent in charge James Higgins, I would like to thank Detective John Urena of the Joint Firearms Task Force and ATF Special Agent Dean Conigliaro. I also want to thank our United States Marshal, Michael Greco, and his team, as well as the New York State Office of Special Investigations, Department of Corrections and Community Supervision for assistance in today's many arrests, the New York City Department of Investigation, the Bronx DA's office, and the Westchester District Attorney's office. Finally, last but not least, I want to thank the career prosecutors who have worked so hard on this case and so many other cases, and they are Assistant U.S. Attorneys Rachel Mayman, Micah Smith, Robert Allen, Hagen Scotton, Jessica Feinstein, and Drew Johnson Skinner, supervised by their very able chiefs, Lori Kornbaum and Nola Heller of the Violent and Organized Crime Unit. Let me end by saying law enforcement has no mission or obligation more important than keeping our people safe. As I have said before, when gangs proliferate, neighborhoods suffer, communities disintegrate, and innocent children die. The message to the people living in these communities is this: we are here and committed to making your neighborhood safe, decent, and safe. And for those who are in a gang or are thinking about joining a gang, the message is even more blunt. Unless you like jail or death, don't do it. Now it's my honor to call to the podium our Police Commissioner, Bill Bratton.
Good afternoon. I'll echo the U.S. Attorney's recognition of both those that have assembled up here at the podium, but the many hundreds of others who were involved in this investigation over the past many months for the work, the hard work and dedication that they put in to fulfill what the U.S. Attorney has just mentioned, the obligation of government, the primary obligation to prevent our citizens and protect them from violence. The Northern Bronx, particularly 4-7 and 4-9 precincts, have been besieged by violence, much of it at the hands of these two street gangs, for much too long. In 2014 alone, in the 4-7 precinct, there were 51 shootings and 17 murders. In 2015, as we began to focus on the violence, we had 11 murders and 30 shootings. Not all of them certainly committed by these two gangs, but they were significantly involved in a significant number of them. In 2016, we have had year-to-date, my notes say 6 shootings, but as of an hour ago, that's now 7 shootings. Because in the precinct, the 4-7, as recently as an hour ago, we had a home invasion, apparent home invasion, in which a shooting occurred, and 3 murders, reflective of the fact that despite all this work, there is still much more to do to help that area deal with the violence in its midst. While these drug dealers conducted their trade along White Plains Road, around the Eastchester Gardens, and in the vicinity of schools and playgrounds, as referenced by the U.S. Attorney, they also unwittingly helped law enforcement to build our cases and to take back those neighborhoods for the decent people who have been victimized for years in those neighborhoods. Our Bronx Gang Squad investigators, and I'll particularly compliment them for the initiation of this investigation, along with the many federal partners who are represented up here at the podium, have been meticulous in identifying the main suspects, getting access to their conversations, and strategically buying their poison. We could not conduct these investigations without the phenomenal leadership and assets and laws of the federal government. Regrettably, the collateral damage of the criminality of these individuals and their rivalries has been tragic, to some immeasurable. Take the family of Sadie Mitchell, the 92-year-old referenced by the U.S. Attorney, shot and killed by a stray bullet in her own home off White Plains Road back in 2009. Or Darren Epps, also referenced by the U.S. Attorney, shot to death during a botched robbery attempt just last month, and many, many others in between. But the effort put forth by these investigators culminated today with the unsealing of these indictments. There are 120 named suspects implicated in a host of racketeering, narcotics, and firearms offenses, and as referenced by the U.S. Attorney, this makes this the single largest gang takedown in modern New York history. And I assure you it is not due to to a lack of large takedowns, a number of which you've reported on just in recent months. But this takedown will go a very long way toward ending the historical violence that's been carried out in the midst of NYCHA residents and also spilled out into the streets of Laconia, Wakefield, and Williamsbridge, just to name a few neighborhoods forced to endure these criminal enterprises. We've now halted these operations and the ensuing wake of destruction that follows them, which we all know goes well beyond any hand-to-hand transaction. It's good this operation's occurring now because it'll help to ensure a much safer summer for the residents of those neighborhoods as we go into the summer. I've often said we cannot arrest our way out of some of the larger challenges our society faces, but in this instance, handcuffs are just what are needed, because some in our society just do not get it. Deliberately acting with impunity, without any regard for the innocent lives they ruin, these gang members do not belong on our streets. Instead, they belong exactly where they are going, to federal prison for many years, where they won't be surrounded by their buddies, they won't be close to their families, and they'll no longer be free to terrorize the neighborhoods in which they grew up. Any credit for putting them away is to be shared by the many agencies that are reflected here, but this is only representation, as the hardworking detectives, agents who participated in the investigation, and many of them participated in the action this morning. They are the ones that need to be thanked. So I thank the U.S. Attorney for his continuing aggressiveness and the various federal partners that we work with of understanding the importance of committing ourselves to dealing with the violence in this city, and through our efforts to hopefully, as we have done for the last 20 years, reduce it year after year. But as reflected in the crimes that are alleged today, there's still too much and still much more work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now, let me call to the podium Special Agent in Charge Melendez from HSI.
Good afternoon, and thank you for covering this important law enforcement event. As a way of introduction, once again, my name is Angel Melendez. I am the new Special Agent in Charge for ICE's Homeland Security Investigations here in New York. Today's operation is reflective of the true collaborative efforts of the agencies that are here represented today. The only way that we can appropriately address crimes of violence of this magnitude has to be in a collaborative effort, and these are the successful results that we can attain. HSI's focus in this investigation was the Two Fly Gang operating out of Eastchester Gardens. And when we talk about this particular gang, their base of operations was the playground in Eastchester Gardens. The playground that was meant for the honorable and law-abiding citizens and their families to enjoy was taken over by these violent criminals to be able to push and hide their narcotics and weapons. This particular gang was led by 24-year-old Lowell Parrish, also known as Mad Dog. Now, I say 24-year-old, and it's important to denote the age because that is the average age of both these gangs. 24-year-olds in their prime of their lives, where they can be providing and doing so much good for society, they have chosen, because they chose, to lead a life of crime and violence. These gangs are being charged today with racketeering charges. These gangs are the epitome of organized crime today. I had the opportunity to actually drive by the Eastchester Gardens a couple of weeks ago and see firsthand how adult males took over these playgrounds. And it's very important to denote, as the commissioner and the U.S. attorney indicated, they led through violence and intimidation, and they had no regard for lives. As it pertains to law enforcement, through words, our investigations we became aware that they were talking about how they would address and confront law enforcement officers that they were able to spot conducting surveillance during their operations or their drug trafficking operations. And of course, through their actions, as indicated by the commissioner and by the U.S. attorney, these individuals are alleged and suspected to be involved in several murders, and not only gang-related murders, murders of innocent victims. These gangs operate in an area where on an average there's at least one shooting reported on a daily basis for the past 5 years. That is no way for our citizens and our communities to live. That's why it is so important that we utilize every jurisdiction, every tool that we have at our hand to address this problem. And today, we're addressing it at the federal level with a federal indictment of 120 members. I have to once again commend the outstanding work of all our law enforcement officers, agents, and investigators that were out there day in and day night investigating these criminal organizations, because that's what they are. These gangs are nothing more but criminal organizations. We stand together resolute to continue to address crimes of violence in our city, and we will continue to do so in a collaborative effort. I want to thank the U.S. Attorney and his team of prosecutors that undertook the daunting task of indicting 120 individuals today. I want to close by indicating that today was a very good day for law enforcement, a really bad day for gang members, and I believe a great day for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, let me call to the podium Special Agent in charge of the DEA here, James Hunt.
Good afternoon. I first want to just thank all law enforcement partners represented here today for this monumental collaborative effort. But really, I'd like to commend the detectives, individual detectives, federal agents, and prosecutors who put this case together. It's a huge undertaking. They've gotten some really bad people off the street who deserve to be in jail, and that's where they're going. So I just want to thank all of them in particular. Thank you.
Happy to take your questions. Yeah. I don't believe so, no. Yep. I don't think we allege violence in the other suburbs, but the investigation is continuing, but that's not alleged at this moment, no. Yeah.
You mentioned civil component involving your office looking at NYCHA. Is this in tandem operation, and what could possibly result from this? Could there be some sort of monitor share?
I was mentioning, because when you talk about how you make communities safer and you improve the lives of folks, people should be aware of all the efforts that people engage in. And when you talk about broken windows or other sort of policing strategies, it's also important to think about the other ways that law enforcement and U.S. attorneys' offices can make a difference. And I thought it would be remiss in talking about how we're dealing with a very serious violence and narcotics problem in this public housing area in the Bronx, not to also mention something that has become public, and that is another component of our office, taking a look at the living conditions in NYCHA housing throughout the city. That's an independent, separate civil inquiry, which I thought was important to mention, so that the public understands that our efforts are not limited only to taking bad guys off the street, but also figuring out ways to make sure that other agencies are living up to their responsibility to make sure that they're keeping housing safe, sanitary, and the like. As I think I mentioned, and Commissioner, happy to have him speak also, there was a discussion among law enforcement partners about a surge of violence in these areas. And as happens from time to time, a decision was made that the combined resources of federal agencies, federal prosecutor's office, and the very able NYPD was the best way to tackle this problem and the most serious way to tackle this problem. I think we mentioned it in the indictment. I don't know that I can give you any color beyond what's in the indictments, but as I mentioned, open air selling of drugs, congregating and talking about the kinds of activities that we're going to engage in, sometimes hiding weapons, what you might expect that gang members engage in. Yeah.
Can you give us a sense of the working relationship between your office and the NYPD? Obviously, there's recently been some investigations that have affected top brass there.
I hope it's obvious that the working relationship is excellent. We have an excellent police commissioner. With respect to this case, I think the results are obvious. It hasn't been that long. Usually when you have a case of this magnitude, when you have to get that much evidence put together and you have to have a grand jury investigation of this length, to have a profound effect on the public safety in those neighborhoods, it takes very close collaboration and working together. With respect to other investigations that you referenced, the commissioner and I have spoken. Our folks speak with each other, and it's a joint investigation to the extent that there is corruption in the department, I know that there's nobody more committed to rooting that out than the commissioner, which is why we're working on that jointly along with the FBI. Yeah.
So, can you talk about the Zaza issue?
Can we talk? I know that's an important case.
Doctors are waiting just to ask
Yeah.
one would you please kindly walk us through what is the next step for the Zaza Arab, and could you also tell Turkish followers that they are expecting to hear what this case may lead and what they should expect from this case?
I would like to get back to this, but with respect to the case of Reza Zarrab, he had a pretrial conference today at which he was arraigned, and he entered a plea of not guilty through his lawyer. Another court date was set for a status conference, I think for June 16th at 11 a.m., and the case will proceed like all cases proceed through our federal system, and if he chooses to go to trial, he'll get a fair trial, but I don't have anything to say beyond that. Yeah.
In terms of looking into NYCHA, is this something that's already going on, or is this something that you're planning to do in the future? And if it has been going on, how long have you been looking into it?
Yeah, I don't usually talk about the future. It's an ongoing, yeah.
It's already been going on. Have you looked at housing already throughout the
Entirety
entirety
of,
of the city? Have you already looked at housing?
I'm not going to say anything beyond what is already public, and what is public is that we are taking a look at whether or not NYCHA is following its obligations in connection with its representations to the Department of Housing and Urban Development with respect to these issues of safety, mold, lead, and what have you. Yeah.
In terms of Sadie Mitchell, the woman, 92-year-old woman who was killed, did the indictment allege any particular person who's charged with the killing and shooting?
No, we don't at this time, and no, we don't at this time. That's charged as the overall, as part of the overall racketeering conspiracy. But I should emphasize, which I usually do, the investigation is ongoing. We sent a letter to both judges in the case, in the various cases, making it clear we do intend to supersede and have additional allegations of violence with some more specificity in the future. As we're required to with respect to victim notification, I think we're in the I don't know if particular contact has been made today, but we're in the process of doing that as we always do. I think there are 5 that are described in the 2 indictments, and as the letter, which you either have or can get from our press office, there are references to other murders that we expect to be able to charge in the near future. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.